Toss aside the touchy-feely notions of love in business and recognize the real power it holds. Welcome to the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast with host Steve Farber. Drawing on his work with a wide variety of companies from the Fortune 100 to smaller family-owned businesses, Farber shares inspiring interviews with business leaders and proven strategies for how you can create experiences that your customers will love by developing a culture that your employees, teammates, and colleagues love working in. Discover why and how love, at the end of the day, is just damn good business for you too. Here's your host, Steve Farber.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. I am your host, Steve Farber. This podcast is brought to you by the Extreme Leadership Institute. You should check them out at extremeleadership.com. And I think you'll enjoy what you see there. I know that because it happens to be my company and my website. And you'll find all kinds of examples on how to operationalize love in business, which is, of course, one of the things that we're here to talk about. And my guest today is Daniel Poneman. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Daniel, and we're just going to dive right in. So Daniel is, and this is very much scratching the surface. I'll start out by saying that Daniel is a sports agent. And I know this is not traditional to interrupt my own intro by asking my guest a question, but how old are you, Daniel?
29.
29. So 29. He's a partner in a sports agency based in Chicago called Beyond Athlete Management. He's been profiled in the New York Times and Sports Illustrated, among other places, for a couple of very unusual reasons, one of which is that his career actually started when he was in high school. So we'll hear about that in just a bit. He's also the founder of the Shot in the Dark Foundation, which has helped hundreds of young men from Chicago's inner city earn college scholarships to play basketball at all levels, including the NBA. He has partnered with Dwyane Wade and Chance the Rapper to produce a great documentary film called Shot in the Dark. I've seen it. I highly recommend it. It's really amazing. It premiered on Fox, and it was nominated for a Sports Emmy not too long ago. So, Daniel, we got a lot to talk about. I'm glad you're here, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm psyched. I'm happy we could finally make this happen.
Yeah, terrific. So let's start with. I want to start with the present. Work our way back to the past a little bit, and then look ahead to the future. So tell us a little bit about your agency and the nature of your business right now.
Well, I like that you're starting in the present. I feel like usually you start linearly, right? Start when I was a kid, and I tell the same story about my progression. And okay, let's start and work backwards. That makes this more fun. I'll have to think on my feet. What do I do now? All right. Well, Beyond Athlete Management is a full service sports agency. So we represent players in the NBA, players in the NFL, players in international professional leagues around the world. We've got 2 football agents, 4 or 5 basketball agents, a bunch of support staff. And yeah, we do everything from representing contracts on the court or the field to negotiating endorsement deals to helping them manage their nonprofits and their brands and their social media and pretty much everything under the sun involved with being a professional athlete we manage. So I'm a founder in the company, and I'm also a sports agent, a basketball agent. So I represent my own NBA players and international pros. And that's the main thing that consumes my life is my work with Beyond and the team that we're building with our staff and our athletes.
So how many folks on the extended team right now at Beyond?
Tough to say because we have our full-time staff and then our contractors that are part of our family too. Probably like anywhere between 13 and 20,
depending on the day and
Yeah.
what projects you have working. Yeah. And what is your portfolio, if that's the word that you use, your portfolio of athletes that you're representing? So obviously you focus on basketball,
mm-hmm.
but your agency, I'm assuming, focuses on other sports as well.
Yeah, so I do basketball. So our agency really just now does football and basketball. So we represent players in NFL, and then NBA, and then we have players playing in pro basketball and pro leagues around the world. So we have guys currently in Australia, Korea, Italy, Germany, Israel, Spain, Poland. We've got guys all around the world playing professional basketball, and then NBA, and then the NFL.
And so I'll make a confession. I'm not much of a sports guy. I don't have you on this podcast because I'm a sports fan and I want to get close to the guy who's close to the guys. That's not where I'm coming from.
Good to,
but a lot of people who listen to this,
that's good to hear. Actually, the most common thing for me, people find out I'm a sports agent, they want to talk sports, but I don't like to talk sports because that's what I have to do all day. I'd spent the whole day on the phone with NBA teams talking sports, so it's nice to talk about something else.
Your wish is granted. But having said that, first of all, let me be clear so I don't alienate anybody listening. I have nothing against sports. I'm just not one of those guys that, knows all the players and the stats and all of that. But certainly a lot of people are. So for the benefit of those folks who are tuned in to the sports world, any of your clients that folks would be aware of, that would recognize?
Yeah, for sure. On the NFL side, our company represents Miles Sanders with the Philadelphia Eagles and Cortland Sutton with the Denver Broncos are probably our two biggest name guys. They're both Pro Bowl caliber guys. Cortland unfortunately got injured recently, so he's out for the year. And then on the NBA side, one name people might recognize is Glenn Robinson III. He played for the Golden State Warriors and the Philadelphia 76ers this year. He's kind of our biggest name brand basketball player that everyone knows.
Great. Very cool. All right. Now, you founded the company when?
We launched a little over 2 years ago.
Okay. So you were 25-ish.
No, so when we launched the company, I was 26. It was just before my 27th birthday.
Okay. All right. And is that in that industry, is that unusual, not unusual for somebody under 30 years old to be that active in the sports agency?
Yeah, well, I mean, in our business, I would say of players who represent, or of agents who represent NFL and NBA players, I would say less than 5% are under 30. There's a lot of aspiring agents or junior agents, but actual people who are agents who represent players at the highest level, I'd say a very small percentage are under 30. A lot of guys are in their early 30s and late 30s, 40s, because it is kind of a young man's game. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of travel, long hours. I think a lot of people get burnt out later on or try to find their exit. But it is not common that someone's representing players at the highest level in their 20s, and certainly not common to have founded an agency at that age. And then actually, when I got certified to be an NBA agent, I was only 24. I think at the time I was probably the youngest certified NBA agent. A lot of my peers were probably still in college, and I was representing players.
Yeah. So did you, are you one of these people that from an early age, you knew that this is what you were going to be doing, or did this kind of reveal itself to you over time?
Everything about my journey revealed itself over time. As we'll get to my story, I started my basketball journey for my professional basketball journey when I was 14 years old. So I'm not thinking about a career when I was 14 years old. I was thinking about girls and playing ball and riding bikes and going to parties and hanging out. And I wasn't thinking about my career. And then my career path began to reveal itself to me then. But even then, I didn't know that I was going to be an agent until the day before I decided to become an agent. Everything just kind of, if you keep your eyes and ears open, the opportunities present themselves and the path reveals itself.
So let's start with that because, I know your story and what you just said makes perfect sense to me. But somebody who's meeting you for the first time, when they hear 14 years old doing related work to this, that's a little bit of a double take, right? So why don't you, now's now's your opportunity to tell the story that you've told many times. Take us back to the beginning with the perspective of where you are now. I'd like to go back to around, those early teenage years and tell us what happened.
Oh, for sure. So when I was a freshman in high school, this was 2005, and I wasn't thinking about becoming a basketball agent or a basketball scout. I was a kid. And one day I was in the computer lab in school, and a friend of mine, the kid named Eric Dortch, showed me a website. Eric was the best basketball player in our school. I went to Evanston High School, big public school in Chicago. It was 4,000 kids. Eric was the best freshman basketball player at the school. I was maybe the 15th best freshman. I was okay. Good enough to be on the team, not good enough to get much playing time. But Eric showed me a website in our computer lab in history class. We were supposed to be doing work, and it showed that he was ranked as the 18th best freshman in the state of Illinois. And I was, my mind was blown. Like, I couldn't believe that there was a website that adults wrote about who were the best 14 and 15-year-old basketball players in the state. Because that's the stuff that we argue about on the playground and in the lunchroom. I didn't know that there was like a business behind it, a website called Chicago Hoops that ranked the players. So I looked at the rankings and I see all these guys that we know that we played against growing up on the rankings. And I see they have a message board. So I jump in the message board. I start, writing about, and this was before Twitter, before Facebook, before any of this stuff. So message boards is where we communicated, or, information was shared. So I started writing about, all the players I'd played against and I'd seen. And, even at the time I had the foresight, on the message boards, people always have like different, names like Basketball Fan 21, right? But I was Daniel Poneman. I used my name. I wanted my opinions to be associated with me. I started writing about high school basketball. I got so obsessed with this message board community that I started going to other people's games on the weekends so I could write about the games that I was seeing on this message board. Well, before long, I started my own website to compete with the website that had this message board. I got banned from the message board because I was a competitor at that point. And I started making my own rankings. I said, that guy, that guy's some grown up who's never played against these guys. I know better than him. I played against him. So I made my own website. I ranked all the best players in the state in every class. And I started doing interviews with the guys who were my friends, asking them about their recruiting and, their high school season. And before long, I had the most popular high school basketball website in Chicago as a 15-year-old, sophomore at Evanston High School. So I quit playing for the team. I realized I wasn't ever good enough to, play in college or anything. And I just found a love for writing about basketball. And for me, it wasn't about the writing aspect. It was about the information, the exchange of information. I loved getting news before anybody else and spreading it to the world and having an opinion that mattered. And I love that people took my opinion seriously. And I also got very lucky. I'll say, people always say, credit me for my hard work or determination I got very lucky because I was growing up in the age of the advent of social media. So I was lucky that I got to ride the wave of social media, each platform getting invented at a time that I was ascending. So when I was a freshman, Facebook came out. So I was able to use Facebook to connect with high school basketball players all over the country and get.
So when you were a freshman in college?
In high school.
Oh, in high school.
Same year, in 2006 was when I got Facebook. So
Gotcha.
This is at a time where if you're a newspaper reporter trying to get a scoop from a high school star, you got to call their home phone, get their parents to put them on the phone and interview them. Well, I could just message them on Facebook. So I was getting all the scoops by just using Facebook because the kids were on it and the grownups weren't on Facebook yet. There was like 5 years where it was just the kids before you guys, jumped in there and took over, and then we left. But for a while there, I had every, high school basketball player. I was able to get all the info. And then around my junior year of high school, YouTube came out. So I was like the first person in the high school basketball space to say, okay, well, after I go to a tournament, it takes me a day to write an article and 2 days to write two articles and three. Well, if I just film the games and film these interviews, I can upload them directly to my website the next day and I'm getting all the hits. So I was able to kind of ride the YouTube wave.
Right.
And I got really lucky with, the social media stuff. And I guess the end of the story is all along the way, college basketball coaches who were interested in recruiting high school basketball players in Chicago began to use me as a resource. And they used my website, and then they started to reach out to me, and I kind of became a center point of the recruiting universe in Chicago.
So let me stop you right there for a second. So what I'm hearing so far is you started this thing because you just really dug basketball. And so you started going to watch other players on other teams and write about them because you just enjoyed it, right? And then you were starting to provide a valuable resource to the point where recruiters recognized you as a resource. So my question is, did you ever have the thought when you first started doing this and when you first started, talking to these guys on Facebook, did you ever have a thought that said, I'm building an asset that recruiters are going to want at some point?
Well, it's funny. Like I said, I didn't know that I was going to be an agent until the day before that I became an agent, the day that I became an agent. I didn't know that I was going to be an asset to college recruiters and college coaches until the first college coach approached me and gave me his business card and asked, had never occurred to me, I have this information that's valuable to colleges. To me, it was a hobby that was fun to write about this sport that I liked.
Right.
And then I was at a tournament one day, and I think a coach approached me, said, oh yeah, you're the kid, you got that website. I read your website. Here's my card. We should talk about players. And I was like, okay, wait, I have valuable information. So before long, I started printing out business cards, and I would go to the college coach section at every high school game where they'd all be sitting together in their polos with their school logo on it, and hand out all the business cards and say, hey, if you need to know anything about the players, I'm the guy to talk to. And it only took one coach kind of igniting that, oh, I have valuable information, before I ran wild with it.
So you were pursuing this because it was fun, because you loved doing it. It was kind of a way to hang out with your friends and all of that, right? But then when you got that first indication that there was something valuable here, you ran with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You didn't quote unquote engineer it in order to be that kind of an asset, right? It was just something you loved doing. And you said before that you acknowledge that there's a bit of luck involved in what you've done as well. And we could philosophically debate that all day long. Where does drive end and luck begin? But what you're describing so far, Daniel, is really, to me, it's where those two things come together. Without your innovative thinking and your passion and your drive to get this stuff done, you wouldn't have created this to begin with, right? But then there was also something in you that when you got the first indicator that there's something of value here, you ran right at it, printed up business cards and started handing them out. Is that luck? Well, maybe it's luck that it just so happened that what you were passionate about filled a need somewhere, but it wasn't luck that printed the business cards. It wasn't luck that started handing them out.
Well, both things are true, right? I could say there's so much luck that gave me the opportunity to have the drive, right? I was born in Fairfield, Iowa, but raised in Chicago. If my parents had stayed in Fairfield, Iowa, there'd be no basketball players to write about. If I had not gone to Evanston High School, where there were all these great players that I grew up playing with, I wouldn't have known who the good players were to write about. There were all these lucky breaks I got along the way. And then it got me to the point where, I guess other people in that position might have, not followed through with it or, given up on it. But again, for me, the money aspect of it has never even come into it. There's a lot of people, you want to switch it to monetary value versus just, value in general. A lot of people, when I reach that point, like, oh, these college coaches, they're asking you for information. You should charge them money. And to me at that point, I'm like, I'm 16 years old. What do I need money for? This is not about money. This is fun. This is cool. I'm adding value. And if I start charging money, half of them will pay and half of them won't. So I'm cutting off half of the guys who I really want to talk to. Like this, I was like, this is cool. I'm 16 years old. I'm watching this game on TV, and that coach who's coaching that team is calling me after the game to ask how the high school game went that I went to. This is cool. why in the world would I cut off half of these people for monetary reasons? And I was just going with the flow. I was having fun with it. It wasn't like, oh, I got a strategy I got to execute. I was just freestyling. I was just having fun. I was finding, when I started writing, people cared. I'm 15 years old. People care about what I'm writing. This is so cool. Other kids are writing stuff for their teachers to grade. I'm writing stuff and getting real-time feedback from my audience who's commenting on my articles. Other people are watching TV and telling their friend, oh, that player is good, that player is bad. Well, I'm getting real-time feedback because if I think a player is good, he's going to be playing on TV. So it was fun. So I just went where it was fun. I went where in the direction that excited me, and it worked out.
So did you ever, did you find yourself in a situation where the players got to know who you were and saw that you were becoming the go-to person for recruiters and coaches, et cetera? Did any of them start sucking up to you to try to get you to write favorably about them?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it still happens to this day in different ways, but I mean, not only the players, but the parents. A lot of times the players, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, they aren't savvy enough to, pursue that. But a lot of their parents smell blood. They could see, okay, if that kid writes about my kid can go to college for free, or the parents are so much more into the rankings than the kids. I always used to joke, if I put out a top 50 rankings, 49 sets of parents that are mad at me because they all think that their kid should have been number one. So I would get, my phone be filled with voicemails of just parents calling me, telling me about how great their kids are. But the kids generally have a better feel for it because they play in the games. Okay, that guy's better than me. I got to get better to improve, to be better than that guy. But yeah, for sure. I always got guys that want, players that know how to market themselves. And what's interesting is a lot of the players when we were in high school who were really good at marketing themselves to me are now coaches, agents, recruiters themselves, because now they're good at marketing themselves to the players. Those are the same guys who are now working.
They discovered their real talent just like you did.
Yeah, it's like one of my partners at Beyond, EJ Kushner. He represented himself when he was a player. He played internationally, and he was his own agent. And then he said it clicked that he could become an agent. And he said, "Well, if I'm not very good and I can play 5 years professional representing me, imagine if I represented good players where I could take this." And it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, once the guys kind of, anyway.
So I'm just trying to imagine you as a 16-year-old kid, and every time you write something, you've got parents all over you. Is there any particular example that you can remember of like the one one for the record books in terms of parents' behavior around that whole thing?
I can't think of one particular parent. I mean, there's one parent that sticks out to me. It's actually a good friend of mine who actually passed away a couple of years ago, tragically, but Greg Tucker and his dad, Greg Sr. So Greg was a teammate of mine in middle school, and he became a good player in high school. And his dad felt close to me, so felt that like because we were former teammates, I should rank his son high. I should rank Greg high on every list. So he would call me after every single game and leave long voicemails recapping everything that happened in the game. And I would listen to him sometimes, but on one hand, it's like kind of annoying because it's like, okay, it's blowing up my phone. On the other hand, it's like you appreciate how involved a guy like that is in his kid's life in a city where so many kids don't have present fathers in their lives. You have to give kudos to the dads who take the time to call the reporter's phone after every single game to hype up their kid.
Yeah, beautifully said. And then so what was the next phase of your journey? And at this point, you're still in high school, right?
Yeah. So I planned to go to school at Northwestern University. I had a friend who was coaching there, Tavares Hardy, who was actually, I think, the first college coach to start, to reach out to me to start utilizing me for information. And Tavares gave me an invitation to be a team manager at Northwestern. Said he could help me get into school. I could be, on the bench with them. And it seemed like a really cool thing. And then it just seemed like the obvious path, right? And then it occurred to me one day, October of my senior year, I think, and said, okay, am I doing this because this is the best path for the career that I want? Or am I doing it just because it seems cool, Northwestern, whatever? So you know what? I don't think I need to go to school and take out a bunch of loans and, get this whole education thing and get into debt and, limit what I could do professionally because I have school, when I kind of have what I like to do already, and I'd like to see if I could give it a go doing it professionally. So I convinced my parents to let me take some time off, and give it a shot. And if it didn't work, I could go to school. So everyone thought I was crazy. You turn down a school like Northwestern, you live in Evanston. It's like everyone, you dream of getting into Northwestern. And I gave it a go as being a professional scout. And, I'd like to say that from there, it was just all uphill, but it was a difficult journey. I learned the universe sent me tons of obstacles and tons of challenges along the way that it was almost like that those first 4 years was like all smooth sailing. It was like the universe convincing me, hey, you got this, you can ride the bike. And as soon as I was, on my own, I started falling off the bike and realizing how difficult it is to run a business on your own and be an adult and live on your own. And there were some ups and downs, but it was a very fun journey that prepared me for the spot I'm in today.
So what was the first wall that you hit?
Well, I think the first wall was money, was figuring out, okay, I've got something that's really cool. Everyone reads my stuff. Everyone watches my videos, and it's fine when I'm living with my parents and I'm in high school and I'm making a few $1,000s a month. I got more money. I mean, you're in high school, you're making a few $1,000s a month. That's more money than you could ever imagine. Every time I went out to eat with my friends is on me, but then when you become an adult and you got to pay rent and you got to figure out how to live. And then I hired an assistant and I'm like, okay, how do I turn this thing into a real business? This isn't just a cool kid blog anymore. I've got to scale it. And I had these big plans for, okay, I want to create the same website I created in Illinois in every single state. And it was a cool idea, but then it was also like, okay, I know how to, as a 17, 18-year-old kid on my own, I know how to make videos and write blogs and scout players. Do I know how to run a business? Do I know how to scale? Do I know how to be a CEO? Do I know how to hire? Do I know, and along that way, my parents, my dad went to Harvard Business School. He's a brilliant guy. And he would often try and offer his help. It's like, Dad, I'm successful. I'm the wonder kid. I made it here on my own. I got this. And little did I know I didn't have it, but trial by fire, you learn on the job.
So tell us a little bit about the showcases that you used to run. Was that when you were still in high school?
Yeah. So I started those when I was in high school.
So first of all, tell us what a showcase is for basketball players.
So it was a concept I came up with in high school. For basically, there's a showcase for basketballs where you get a bunch of really good players in a gym and you bring college basketball coaches or scouts to scout those players. And you basically you help make matches where a scout likes a player, they offer them a scholarship to their school. So traditionally, the way that showcases work, our players will pay an entry fee, $50, $100 to play in the event. College coaches will come and scout the players who paid. So I thought, this is great. It's a way for me to make money. I had run my first event was when I was a sophomore in high school. I ran an 8th grade all-star game, which a lot of those players went on to play Division I basketball. But then this was my senior year. I ran my first senior showcase. So it was basically for high school seniors who had finished their senior season, who wanted to play college basketball, but hadn't been offered a scholarship yet. So I basically invited all the top high school seniors to play in this showcase and invited a bunch of college coaches. But what I found, I was charging like $75. What I found was most of the top players who were good enough to play in college couldn't afford $75 to play in a showcase or couldn't get a ride to the suburbs where I was holding the event. I realized there's a reason a lot of these kids didn't have scholarship offers yet. And they didn't have the resources to get their name out there, to get recruited, to go to camps like this. So I started to waive the fees for every kid who couldn't pay for it, who I invited in. I had a successful first event, but I lost money on it because I had to pay the gym fees and the refs and the jerseys and, insurance. And I let so many kids play for free, I ended up losing money. But, I would say that first year, 10 or 15 kids got scholarships to college who came in with no scholarships. So if you think about it, say I lost
from inner city Chicago, and they had this incredible talent. You recognized the talent. They didn't have the resources to participate in a typical showcase. So you just said, come on along.
Yeah. I mean, say for a lot of these kids, it's like, if you don't get a college scholarship and you're on the west side of Chicago through basketball, what are your options? You can apply for the local community college and we'll get on a waiting list. A lot of these kids don't have options. So, again, if you look at the numbers on the showcase, say I lost $3,000, but if I got 10 kids scholarships, and each of those scholarships is probably worth $100,000.
Right.
So I lost $3,000 in my pocket, but I created $1 million in value for those kids that are going to college for free now.
Right.
So even though I lost money, it was a great thing. So I started to shift my mentality. And again, this was around the time that like kind of my entrepreneurial scouting stuff maybe wasn't going as I had planned, but I started to get more interested in this kind of philanthropic side of things. I have this huge platform. I know all these college coaches, and there are all these players in Chicago who need scholarships and don't have them at the end of every year. Well, if I can, use my platform to not only help the future NBA players, but help these other kids, I'm doing this great thing. So I decided to shift the focus of it from being a for-profit event to a nonprofit event, raising money from donations online, finding sponsors. And that was how the showcase was born. And now 10 years later, it's still happening every day. So that first year, we probably got 10 guys scholarships. Well, this past year, it got canceled due to COVID. But the previous year, the last time we had it, there were 270 participants.
Wow.
130 college coaches came, and over 50 players got college scholarships through the 2-day event.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So when you look back over the history of these showcases, what would you estimate is the dollar amount of scholarships that players got from these?
Oh, it's so hard to say because we only really started tracking data the last 4 years. It was kind of a fly by the seat of my pants operation those first few years, because it's just, I invite the coaches, I invite the players, they go on with their lives, and it's great. And I hear the success stories, but the last few years, as we've had more funding and built out a real team, we've got to actually track the numbers. And each of the last 4 years that we did track the numbers, there's probably 50 kids a year. So, I mean, it's probably, say if each scholarship's worth $100,000, that's $5 million a year. It's 20 million in those years alone. So, I mean, maybe close to 40, 50 million over the years you've been doing it in scholarship dollars that have been accepted.
So I just want to stop and acknowledge something, Daniel, because everybody, like everybody else, is very close to their own story. So sometimes, hearing a perspective from another person, in this case me, who's hearing your story for the first time, this is what I noticed. Way back when you ran that showcase, and so I'm hearing, first thing is, you realized that some of the best players wouldn't be able to come because they didn't have the resources. So decision number one is, I'll make it free. Next thing that happened is you lost money on it, but it was a great value. And at that point, it would have been very easy for a lot of people to say, well, that's nice, but it doesn't make any sense because I lost money on it. But you didn't do that. You recognized the value in other people's lives that goes way beyond a simple balance sheet approach to something like this. So I just want to stop and acknowledge that you had that kind of perspective at any age is a beautiful thing, but particularly, at an age where let's just say, most teenagers are not focused in that sort of a way on the world around them.
Yeah, well, again, I think you're right, and I credit my parents for instilling, a appetite for helping others, right? And like that was something that I was taught. But also, I again have to recognize my privilege in that I had the privilege of not having to worry about my own survival. I come from a good family. I had, I know I had something to fall back on, if I wasn't making money. So I had that privilege to say, I'm not worried about the $3,000 I lost. I can help people. That's way better. And, through that attitude, I've been able to do well for myself over the years since. But, I have to acknowledge how lucky I was to be in a point throughout my life where I could always focus on the cool, innovative, right, fun thing to do and not have to worry about my own survival. Because if I was one of those kids fighting for their life, maybe you can't always be thinking about, oh, how do I help others, or how I can lose money and do something great. Like, they were just trying to get to school so they could make something of themselves. So I appreciate the position I was in to be able to make those decisions.
Yeah, terrific. All right, so now, at what point did the movie Shot in the Dark come into, no pun intended, come into focus?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. So again, take it back to the story. I kind of finish high school and I've got this booming business and I kind of fall on my face. And I think every great success story has those moments where you're like, crap, I screwed this up. And then it's those moments that you can give up. I could have packed it in and gone back to college, and gone to school and given up. But I kind of pivoted and found other things I was interested in. I looked at it as an opportunity. I was maybe 20 years old and burnt out. I've been 6 straight years of basketball all the time, scouting, writing, interviewing. And I was just kind of like, all right, what's the next thing? I've done this, and I had 2 filmmakers from New York reach out to me right at that time when I was kind of like stalled out. And had 2 filmmakers who went to Evanston High School with me, who I didn't know very well. And they reached out to me, said, hey, we want to make a film about basketball in Chicago. And we need a subject. Can you help us pick the subject? And this is at a time when Chicago was in the news a lot for the wrong things. Murder rate was high. The killings were at an all-time high this summer. It was at the summer of 2012. And they wanted to tell a true story about Chicago, not the sensationalized headlines that you saw about the murders, but tell a true story about someone living in that proverbial war zone, and show the human side of it. So I sent them a list of players that we could film with, and at the top of the list was a kid named Taekwon Greer. Went to Orr High School on the west side. Good basketball player, really rough home circumstances. His house had just burned down. His mother had just had a stroke. He was living with friends. But he was a really positive, happy young man and had a chance to play college basketball in the future. So it was supposed to just be a 10-minute short film. But through the course of filming, we kind of realized that it was more than a short film. So we ended up filming for 3 years. And keep in mind, at this time, we had no funding for the film. So it was 3 of us funding it out of pocket, sleeping together in hotel room beds, doubling up head to toe, sharing falafel sandwiches, like just really funding it ourselves, bootstrapping it to make this film. And people thought we were crazy. Here I am, this kid who I was in Sports Illustrated, I had this big business, and I'm like going to the west side of Chicago every day with 2 film school nerds, filming something that isn't coming out for 5 more years, right? So people are, they're used to me filming something and it comes right out on YouTube the next day. And like, why do you keep going to the same school and nothing's coming out on YouTube? What are you doing? And I knew we were going to tell this like seminal Chicago story. It started out, they just asked me to pick the player, but you can't just tell 2 filmmakers from New York, like, okay, here's where the hood is, drive there, show up, start filming, you'll be good. Like, I had to go and kind of help them get, acclimated. And before long, I became the producer. I was setting up the shoots. I was, helping with the budget. I'm doing all these things. And for long, I'm a film producer. And then flash forward to 2018, the film got premiered on Fox. And then got nominated for a Sports Emmy. So,
and you ended up partnering up with some pretty heavy hitters with that movie, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, we self-produced it and self-funded it for the first few years, but ultimately we knew we needed finishing funds to get it over the finishing line. We had enough money to go to the school every day, not enough for sound design and score and soundtrack and all these things. So we linked up with a group called Los Angeles Media Fund, founded by Jeffrey Soros and Simon Horstman, and they provided the financing for us to finish the film. And then we linked up with 2 people, a person that I knew from Chicago, Chance the Rapper, became an executive producer. And then Dwyane Wade, another Chicagoan, became another executive producer to lend some credibility and exposure to the film. So we kind of, between Los Angeles Media Fund and those guys, we got the financing and the credibility. And then Fox came and it all kind of came together. And it was pretty surreal for knowing where we came from, 3 guys just like driving my beat up Honda Pilot to the west side of Chicago every day to, a national TV premiere. And I got to when we were in the editing process, I got to fly to Miami and go to Dwyane Wade's house, where we watched a screening of the film on his movie theater, and he gave us notes on, editing notes, and his chef served us cookies and fruit. And it was like pretty surreal knowing where we came from when we started that film. And, and again, to take it back to my story, it was pretty gratifying of like, when people are calling you crazy for, giving up this business to work on a passion project. Sometimes you start to internalize it, like, did I do something stupid here? But then when it all comes full circle and you see the vision through, it's pretty gratifying.
So I want to encourage people to watch Shot in the Dark. Where would they find it nowadays?
Well, so it airs on Fox Sports every couple weeks, so you can find it on your local TV listings. And if you go to the Fox website and just search for Shot in the Dark, it's streaming on the Fox website. So
can you give just a high-level synopsis? Just give us a little teaser what it's about.
So we followed a high school basketball team on the west side of Chicago from their sophomore year of high school through college. So it's, the kind of the roughest area of Chicago, an underfunded school, with kids who are facing all types of obstacles in the midst of the most violent years in Chicago's recent history. So you're watching these kids try and fight for a state championship while trying to overcome, gang violence so serious that certain players on the team couldn't go to each other's neighborhoods because of the wars going on. And it's just a group of young, innocent, kids who are just like any other high school kids, but living in extraordinary circumstances. And ultimately they get to 2 state finals during the course of our filming. And then you got to watch it to see what other craziness ensues. But, one of our star players in the film actually got shot in the leg during senior year, during the playoffs, during their chase of the state championship, and actually returned to the court. But you got to watch the movie to see what happens when he returns.
Yeah. Thus the title of the movie, Shot in the Dark. And you also have a foundation under the same name. So what is that all about?
Well, so the foundation is just what we run the showcases under. It became, we didn't actually weren't 501c3, qualified until a few years ago, and we just named the foundation after the movie.
Great. So during COVID, the showcases are not going on. We're all living right now, at the time that we're having this discussion, in, let's just say, unusual times. It's changing every industry. But that aside, because this is a temporary, we don't know how long this is going to last, but we do know it's temporary. As you look ahead, we've talked about, we started where you are now. We got the story of your past and what led you to where you are now. So look ahead to the future. What is it that you want to create next? Is it simply, expanding? I say simply, but expanding and growing and scaling your current business, or is there something else that you're thinking of?
Well, I believe that all the things that I want to do, I can do through my current business. What I found through my nonprofit and through my film is that you can make the largest impact by leveraging the platform that professional athletes provide. They're modern day superheroes. It's one thing if you're making a film, it's another thing if you're making a film that Dwyane Wade produced. And when I started my showcases, it really got to the next level when a player named Evan Turner, who's also from the west side of Chicago, began sponsoring the showcase. It became the Evan Turner Showcase. And kids were so excited to come play for the Evan Turner Showcase. He was a kid from their neighborhood who went out and made $100 million and became an NBA star. So that was part of my motivation for becoming an agent was, I never wanted to be the super agent who makes the most money and show me the money and I'm wearing the fancy suits and the watches and the cars. For me, it was about, I want to change the world through basketball, and I want to create an impact, and I want to do cool things. I want to make great movies and start great nonprofits and great organizations. And I know that through the platforms that professional athletes provide, we can do all of that. And I also know that I love working with athletes and helping them fulfill their goals and their dreams, and not only on the court and financially, but in their communities and whatever they're passionate about. So through Beyond Athlete Management, I do think we're going to continue to grow into one of the top few agencies in sports, but we're going to do it in a different way. It's not just about signing the best players. It's about signing the right players. And I think we are already doing that and signing really great guys who care. Just just today, we released a newsletter. One of our rookies, Tyrell Terry, is going to be picked in the NBA draft coming up next month. He's put out his first line of Tyrell Terry merchandise and his clothing, and we're selling it and giving a portion of the proceeds to a nonprofit in Minnesota that works with youth homelessness, because that's a cause that Tyrell, who's 20 years old himself, really cares about. So we're finding athletes that care about the right things and helping them, use their platform for good. And I guess to answer your question, I want to keep doing that because I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Wow, what a what a journey. So let me ask you a rather biased question.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, the name of this podcast is Love is Just Damn Good Business Podcast. You can infer from that what my point of view is about the value of love in a business context, not as a sentiment, but as a business practice. If you look at your life and career so far, and you're still very much at the beginning of it, what's love got to do with it? Is that a lens that makes sense to you when you kind of look back and reflect with that question? What does that make you think of?
Yeah, well, I mean, love is everything, I love what I do, and not just the concept of what I love what I do every day. I do the things that I love to do, and then good comes from that. I love the people that I work with, so I enjoy going to work. I love my clients, and they appreciate that, so they believe in me and stick with me. I love the game of basketball, and it's been so good to me, so I know that I have to be good to it. Love is everything. I won't hate on someone who works a 9-to-5 and does something they don't love, because I know not everyone has the option to not do that. I wish everybody did, but I don't know what my life would be like. I've never had a 9-to-5. I've never done something that I don't love, so I don't know what that's like, but I do know that I've followed my heart through every step, and it's led me to doing things that I'm proud of, that I enjoy. And I hope that, I guess my only hope in life is that I can live a long time and continue to do what I love every day. And what I love might change. It might not be basketball at some point. It changed from basketball to filmmaking for a period, and then it came full circle. But as long as I can wake up and do what I love every day with people who I love, then I know I'll be successful, and I know I'll be content.
You just gave a beautiful illustration of the what around these parts we sometimes refer to as the extreme leadership credo, which is do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. Mm-hmm. And that's what you just described. You're doing what you love. You're serving people that you love in an industry that you love, and as a result, it's reciprocated. They love you in return. Your clients love you back. And I imagine that working on your team is an exciting proposition for everybody as well. I'm just guessing, but
it's exciting and usually fun, unless you're our chief of staff today, when I flipped out because the headbands wouldn't be done in time to go to market. But that's the thing. You love what you do. There's still going to be days that you don't love doing it.
That's right.
Even when you love somebody, it's still going to be times that you can't always lead with love, but it always comes back to that, right?
Well, I would say that you can always lead with love, but sometimes you're just not perfect. And there is such a thing as tough love. Let's not forget that. And sometimes we get pissed off, and that's just the way of the world. It's a messy thing. It's not a hearts and flowers every day. Yeah. It's about holding ourselves to really high standards, having an impact on the world, and loving the process. And as I'm fond of saying, oftentimes there are things that we don't love doing, but we have to do in order to do the work that we love. And the technical term for that is called being an adult.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's, I'd say that all the time, not in those words, but I say it all the time. Like I have people all the time that complain about, oh, well, I have this job, but like, I don't like doing this part, or I don't like doing that part, or I don't like going. And it's like, if I could pick anything in the world to do, I would do this. But there are still some days that just everything goes wrong, and I don't want to pick up the phone, and I look, still look forward to my days off. Even when you love what you do, there's days you don't feel like doing it, and yeah, I guess that's called being an adult. And I think people don't understand. A lot of people expect that when you do what you love, you're just going to be in bliss all the time. And I can't stress. I literally, if God came down and said, Daniel, choose your life, I would say this one. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. But today I almost, lost my cool and threw my hat at the wall twice, it's not perfect. And I think that's one thing that really gets lost on people, that I wish more young people in particular would understand. And even as it pertains to 9 to 5, sometimes I see young people like, well, you didn't go to college, so I shouldn't go to college either, or I'm going to quit my job so I can follow my passion. And it's like, well, before you do that, you better have a really good plan. You got to know what you're going to do and how you're going to survive, because sometimes you need that 9 to 5 to support yourself while you pursue your passion until it's ready to become your full time. Or maybe you do need college so you can learn the things and make the connections and build those relationships until you're ready to break off. And I do see it a lot when I mentor young people, that they don't get how much challenges come with even doing the things that you love.
Yeah, because from the outside looking in, it all looks like smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Until you actually get in the boat and hit the choppy waters, to drive a metaphor into the ground. Well, that's fantastic, Daniel. What a great conversation. Thank you for your wisdom, for your great story. Where can people best get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing? And of course, we'll put any links that you want, in the post itself. But what's the best way to reach out to you?
Social media. I'm at Daniel Poneman on every platform.
Well, that's easy enough.
Yeah, you can go to beyond.am as an athlete management. That's our company website, www.beyond.am. Or you can donate at shotinthedarkfoundation.org. Or you can just find me on social media, shoot me a message, and
great.
Hang out.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in to the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. Until next time, do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Love is Just Damn Good Business with Steve Farber. Join us again next time, because when customer and employee satisfaction just isn't enough anymore, we are here to back you up with specific ideas to operationalize love to make an enormous difference in your business, personal life, and the world around you. Visit our website at stevefarber.com to leave a review. And don't forget to share the love with your colleagues and friends, because after all, it's just damn good business.